One person, one vote. This is the way it should be. But somehow this isn't the way it's working. And many say the U.S. Census is directly to blame. Conservatives have long decried the criminality of counting non-citizens in our U.S. Census. Not only counting non-citizens, but counting illegal immigrants. Some even go so far as to say counting illegals in the U.S. Census is exactly why Democrats have pushed so hard for open borders and fought so hard for illegals, even at the expense of legal citizens. Counting non-citizens and illegals has the power to completely redefine the political landscape of any given state, turning once red states into blue states almost overnight. Look at Arizona, turning purple. Under Biden's open borders policies, the United States saw an influx of roughly 8 million people in the span of 4 years. Under the Democrat rules, under 2020 census rules, we are to count every single one of them and redistrict congressional seats accordingly. This is absurd on its face, isn't it? Counting illegals who aren't legally allowed to vote to then determine congressional seats. Yesterday, Florida's Governor DeSantis put this problem in perspective. He says Florida was outright robbed of a second new congressional seat because of this absurd 2020 census system of counting non-citizens.
You know, I told them, Florida, we got a raw deal in the census. We only got one seat. When some of these other states were getting seats, when we've obviously had more growth, we should have gotten at least two. And so they said they were going to redo the count in time for 2026. Now, they would have to do that relatively soon because you need time to draw maps and you need time to get that done. But I think they should award Texas and Florida for sure at least one more seat, because when Biden took over, we were supposed to get 2 seats in Florida, and we only got 1. Rhode Island was supposed to lose a seat, and guess who the Commerce Secretary under Biden was? Former governor of Rhode Island. Did Rhode Island end up losing a seat? No, they kept both. So we're malapportioned right now as a country, I think, because of the migration, and but the state of Florida, I think, for sure. So I think there's ample justification to do it. My guys are going through the court's opinion to look at different avenues, but I think that's definitely something that I certainly would look favorably upon.
But on the Hill, this is not a new battle. Republicans have been fighting for a common sense census reform for years, every time blocked by Democrats. But last month, 19 Senate Republicans reintroduced the Equal Representation Act. It would accomplish one big reform: remove illegal immigrants from the population count used in allocating electoral college votes and House seats. The act was first introduced in early 2024. Here was Congressman James Comer's pitch at the time.
H.R. 7109, the Equal Representation Act, does 2 simple things. First, the bill requires the Census Bureau to include a citizenship question on the decennial census questionnaire. Second, the bill directs that this information be used to ensure fair representation by requiring only citizens be included in the apportionment base.
It then, back then, handed over to the Senate, where every single Senate Democrat proceeded to block the vote. And there, we thought the bill died. Now, the House and Senate have just a few more Republicans in their wings. The bill has been revived, and there's some hope that it may actually go through this time. The ramifications of this bill cannot be understated. Current census practices unfairly reward sanctuary states with inflated congressional clout and federal funding. Liberal opponents, of course, say that this reform, including the American Civil Liberties Union and election law scholars cited by NPR, they all argue that this legislation violates the 14th Amendment's whole number of persons clause. They warn it would lead to a severe undercount, distort congressional representation, and redirect billions in federal funding away from immigrant-heavy districts. Well, of course they'd say that. Joining us now, Elijah Day, President and COO of Patriot Grassroots. He knows a thing or two about canvassing the United States and how this kind of discussion can affect politics as a whole. Where do you think this bill will finally go?
Well, the goal is definitely for it to go in the direction that we were looking for back when it was first introduced and it was pushed away. It's obvious that we as Americans shouldn't have to change the way our elections are happening for people who are not citizens of this country.
Right.
Our elections happen for our people, and so including illegal immigrants or non-citizens in the census makes no sense. It changes the lay of the land as far as how our voting procedures go, and because you have states and cities where you have sanctuary communities, it distorts the number of seats and electoral college votes within that state, which skews everything towards the opposite direction.
No, Governor DeSantis made a great point. He says that he believes that red states lost districts when they should not have, and blue states gained districts. So, with those kinds of effects at stake, this is not a small conversation. The census is a deeply important issue.
Yes, it is. And back when it happened in 2020, it was a different team that was in the White House as it was being prepared from 2016 to 2020, when President's first term. Luckily, we have people who are far more aware of what needs to be done, because it wasn't just the counting of illegals or non-citizens in the census. There are also other problems with the census.
Like what?
For example, we had an individual that did all of the data work for it. That was Obama's data guy, a man named Dan Wagner, and he was able to do all the data and help with the messaging on these things. And so when he created that data, that told everyone that was working on this, where do you go to count people collect the numbers for the census. And he didn't get the contract outright. He was subcontracted, of course, by another entity. And so potentially there's no malfeasance there, but it's just a weird thing. And we are now more fully aware of who's involved in the census and how it's being completed. And I think that's going to give us a better chance to do it the right way.
What insights are we collecting now that could help in the 2030 census?
I mean, that bill is going to be a great opportunity to collect insights. And we are also preparing. Now is the time where we have to start preparing data and preparing a plan. Right. And yesterday, an initial plan was submitted for how it's going to look. And I do think it's focused on the right things. I think it's focused on not just going to major cities, but really putting a heavy focus on rural communities and making sure that we are sending people out to these rural communities who may not respond to text messages or virtual forms of filling out the census. And these rural communities are a part of America, and they are all citizens of this country. And so it's important for us to get out there.
You are part of a company that just specializes in getting information out there, getting action out there, getting people to knock on doors and get voters registered, whatever it is. So you know a thing or two about like how vast the country is and how much work it is. How do we go about collecting an accurate census in the year 2030? Because it's not going to be the same as it was under, I guess, Obama leadership in 2020.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the methods that were used previously are still ultimately the methods that we're going to use, whether we focus on different forms of outreach to citizens and people who fill out the census. We did see an uptick of people back in 2020 self-submitting information, and so that's the ultimate goal, because we also don't want government waste, but we probably want to increase the amount of people that we are going to their doors to physically see that they are there. Yeah. And one last thing that I would mention is the budget last time they ended up spending $13.7 billion, and included in that was technology for their own canvassing app called eCase app. And they used this app throughout that process. They spent tens of millions of dollars on this app when there's already existing technology out there. It's technology that I use every single day when we're going out to do voter outreach and talk to people. And they instead spent tons of money on an outside source to create an app, overspending tons of money. And so the other thing that we need to look at is we need to make sure that we're cutting the inefficiencies within the census.
Wow, so if you do cut the inefficiencies and you kind of go the way that you envision it, I mean, what would the budget look like for this next census?
Yeah, good question. I think you can get it down significantly, hopefully more towards a $10 billion spend or something along those lines. But
for the entire United States?
Yeah, as we've seen already. I mean, we've seen over this past 6 months that we found tons of inefficiencies, ton of money going somewhere that nobody knows where it went. And I think that we're able to change that. I've canvassed or sent canvassers out to every state in this country, and we know what we're doing, and we know what it takes to get this job done. And I think it can be done for less money, and done well too.
That's going to be really an interesting census to watch and see what the actual.
I'm keeping in mind, this is
like
like the Super Bowl for people like me, so I'm interested to watch.
Well, every 10 years.
Yeah.
Elijah Day, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Coming up, No Agenda co-host John C. Dvorak breaks down the libs of the week. Stick around.